The scent of gunpowder and sweat clung to the underground arena like a second skin. I pressed myself deeper into the shadows of the VIP balcony, watching the crowd below roar as another fighter hit the canvas. Blood sprayed across the concrete floor in an arc that made my stomach turn, but I didn't look away. I couldn't afford to. 3 months of hiding. 3 months of working under a false name in the one place my father would never think to look for his precious heiress, serving drinks to degenerates in an illegal fight club. The irony wasn't lost on me. Caroline Cole, raised in silk and diamonds, trained to be the perfect mafia bride, now balancing trays of whiskey for men who'd sell their own mothers for the right price. Table 7 needs a refill. Marco, the floor manager, appeared at my elbow without warning. His voice carried that particular edge that told me the client wasn't someone to keep waiting. VIP section. Don't screw this up, Lena. Lena. My new identity was as thin as the black tank top I wore, as fragile as the lie I'd been living. But it had kept me alive this long. I grabbed a bottle of the expensive stuff, 18-year-old scotch that cost more than I made in a week, and made my way through the crowd. The roar of the audience faded to white noise as I climbed the stairs to the upper level where the real power players watched the carnage below. My hands trembled slightly as I gripped the bottle, not from fear of the crowd, but from the exhaustion that had become my constant companion. Working 12-hour shifts, sleeping in a room barely bigger than a closet, always looking over my shoulder. This was survival, and it was nothing like the life I'd been groomed for. The VIP section was different from the main floor. Leather couches instead of metal bleachers, crystal glasses instead of plastic cups, and security. Serious men in expensive suits who assessed threats with the kind of efficiency that only came from military training or years in organized crime. Table 7 sat in the corner, partially hidden by a decorative screen. I could see expensive shoes, tailored pants, the glint of a platinum watch catching the dim light. Old money, real power. The kind of client who could make problems disappear with a phone call. I approached with my eyes down, the way Marco had taught me. "Good evening, sir. Your scotch." "Leave the bottle." The voice hit me like a physical blow. Deep, with that slight Italian accent that softened certain consonants. I knew that voice. I'd heard it in my nightmares for 3 months. The voice that had said, "I don't do charity marriages," when my father had offered my hand. The voice that had sealed my fate and forced me to run. My hands went numb. The bottle slipped from my fingers, and only years of training in perfect posture and control allowed me to catch it before it hit the floor. But the sound of glass scraping against glass was loud enough to draw his attention. "Look at me." It wasn't a request. Stelvio Travis Trevino didn't make requests. He gave orders, and people obeyed or suffered the consequences. I'd learned that the hard way. I raised my eyes slowly, hoping the dim lighting and my changed appearance would be enough. I'd cut my long blonde hair into a sharp bob and dyed it dark brown, lost 15 pounds from stress and irregular meals, traded designer labels for thrift store basics. But when our gazes locked, I saw the recognition flash across his face like lightning. His eyes were exactly as I remembered, dark gray, almost silver in certain light, and absolutely merciless. They swept over me with the kind of assessment that missed nothing. The cheap clothes, the exhaustion, the fear I was trying desperately to hide. Caroline Cole. My real name on his lips felt like a sentence. Or should I say Lena Martinez, according to your employee file? The blood drained from my face. He'd known. Of course he'd known. Men like Trevino didn't leave anything to chance. He'd probably known exactly where I was since the day I disappeared. "I don't know what you're talking about." The lie was pathetic, but it was all I had. He smiled. It was the kind of smile that made hardened criminals nervous. "Sit down, Principessa. We have much to discuss." The endearment was mocking. Princess. That's what I'd been. My father's perfect little princess, groomed from birth to be traded to the highest bidder, until I'd discovered what my father's business associates really did with the weapons his empire provided. Until I'd seen the bodies. Until I'd become a liability instead of an asset. I'm working. I set the bottle down with hands that shook despite my best efforts. If you'll excuse me. Sit. Down. The steel beneath the velvet made several nearby conversations pause. Security shifted, hands moving toward concealed weapons. I sat. What choice did I have? Running had only delayed the inevitable. Men like Stelvino Travis Trevino always got what they wanted. He was exactly as I remembered, and somehow worse. 6'3" of lean muscle and calculated danger, wrapped in a custom-tailored suit that probably cost more than most people made in a year. His dark hair was styled back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and classical Italian features. Beautiful in the way dangerous things are beautiful. But it was his hands that caught my attention. Scarred knuckles from years in the fighting ring, before he'd climbed to the top of the food chain. A fighter who'd become a king. Those hands had built an empire on blood and bone. You've lost weight. His observation was clinical, detached. The lifestyle doesn't suit you. Poverty rarely suits anyone born to wealth. I lifted my chin, finding some reserve of pride I'd thought I'd lost. Was there something you wanted, Mr. Trevino? Or did you just come to gloat? Gloat? He leaned back, crossing one leg over the other with casual elegance. About what, exactly? About being right. About me being exactly the spoiled princess you thought I was. Too weak to survive on my own. I never said you were weak. He cut me off, his voice sharp. I said I didn't do charity marriages. There's a difference. The memory of that night came flooding back. My father's office. Me standing there in a designer dress that cost more than some people's cars, being offered like a prize to a man who'd looked at me with all the warmth of a snake eyeing a mouse. Trevino had listened to my father's proposition. Marry Caroline, unite our empires, split the East Coast territories, and then laughed. Actually laughed. The Cole princess comes with too many complications, he'd said. I'll pass. That rejection had been the beginning of my end. My father's fury. My desperate attempt to find another way out. The discovery of what my family really did. The decision to run that had led me here. Why are you here? I asked, too tired to play games. After 3 months of silence, why show up now? Trevino poured himself a glass of scotch with unhurried precision. Your father is looking for you. Ice flooded my veins. I know. He's put out a bounty. $500,000 for information leading to your recovery. $1 million for you delivered alive and intact. He took a sip, watching me over the rim of the crystal glass. Interesting word choice that. Intact. My hands fisted in my lap. Intact meant virginal. Meant still marketable as a bride. Meant my father still planned to trade me like livestock. And you're here to collect? The words came out bitter. $1 million is a lot of money, even for someone like you. Someone like me. He repeated my words with dark amusement. And what kind of person am I, Caroline? I met his gaze steadily. A monster who profits from other people's pain. A man who built his empire on broken bones and illegal fights. Someone who cares about power more than people. Accurate. He didn't deny any of it. But incomplete. I'm also a pragmatist, Principessa, and I've recently discovered I have a problem that you can solve. I'm not interested in solving your problems. Not even if it solves yours as well. Despite myself, curiosity flickered. What could I possibly offer you that you can't buy or take? He set down his glass with deliberate care. Legitimacy. Your father controls the largest weapons network on the East Coast. I control the underground fight circuit and most of the gambling operations in 5 states. Separately, we're vulnerable to law enforcement, to rivals, to the changing political climate. Together, no. I stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. Whatever you're proposing, the answer is no. You haven't heard the proposal yet. I don't need to. The answer is still no. I turned to leave, but his next words stopped me cold. Your father's men were here 2 nights ago, asking questions, showing your picture. He paused, letting that sink in. I told them I hadn't seen you, but that courtesy expires at midnight tonight. I spun around, fury replacing fear. You're blackmailing me? I'm presenting facts. He stood, and the crowd seemed to shift around him, unconsciously giving him space. Power radiated from him like heat from a furnace. Your father will find you, Caroline. It's only a matter of time. The question is whether you want to face him as a runaway daughter or as my wife. The word wife hit me like a slap. You said you didn't do charity marriages, that I came with too many complications. 3 months ago, that was true. He moved closer, and I fought the urge to back away. Running would show weakness, and I'd already shown him too much of that. Things have changed. I need what your family connection can provide, and you need protection your father can't breach. Marriage solves both problems. You rejected me once. The humiliation of that memory burned. Why would I say yes now? Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Because 3 months ago, you were a spoiled princess in a designer dress, offered to me like a prize I didn't ask for. Now, you're a woman who's tasted poverty and survival. You understand how the real world works. You're useful to me in ways you weren't before. The honest brutality of it should have hurt more than it did. But he was right. I wasn't the same naive girl who'd believed marriage might save her. I was harder now, smarter, and desperate enough to consider the devil's bargain. And if I refuse? He smiled that terrifying smile again. Then I'll have Marco fire you in the morning. You'll be on the street with no money, no protection, and your father's men already asking questions in this neighborhood. How long do you think you'd last, Principessa? Not long. We both knew it. This isn't a proposal. My voice was steady, even as my world crumbled around me. It's a threat. It's reality. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. I'm offering you a choice, Caroline. Marry me, and you'll have protection, security, and a position in my organization. Refuse, and take your chances with your father. He opened the box to reveal a ring that stole my breath. A blood-red ruby surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum. Beautiful and ominous, like a drop of blood on snow. You have until tomorrow night to decide. He snapped the box closed and set it on the table between us. Meet me at Santoro's restaurant at 8. Come alone. Wear something appropriate. You'll be meeting my family, and first impressions matter. And if I don't show up? He was already walking away, security parting for him like water around a stone. But he paused at the edge of the VIP section and looked back over his shoulder. Then I'll send your location to your father by 9. Either way, Caroline, your time hiding is over. He disappeared into the crowd, leaving me standing there with a ruby ring and an impossible choice. Behind me, I could hear Marco approaching, probably to ask about the VIP client. Around me, the fight club roared with savage joy as another round ended in blood. But all I could focus on was that velvet box, a gilded cage disguised as salvation, a monster offering protection from an even worse monster. I picked up the box with trembling fingers. The ruby caught the light and seemed to pulse like a beating heart. Or maybe like a warning. 24 hours to decide between two hells, My father's brutal control, or Trevino's calculated possession. I thought I'd escaped when I ran 3 months ago. But looking at that ring, I realized the truth. You can't escape men like them. You can only choose which one will own you. And God help me, I was actually considering choosing Stelvino Travis Trevino. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? The velvet box sat on the rickety nightstand in my closet-sized room, the ruby visible even in the darkness. It seemed to glow with its own malevolent light, a constant reminder of the choice I had to make. By morning, I'd made my decision. Or rather, reality had made it for me. I arrived at the Fight Club for what I knew would be my last shift, intending to collect my final paycheck and disappear before Trevino's deadline. Maybe I could catch a bus to Canada. Maybe I could find some small town where neither my father nor Trevino would think to look. Maybe I could survive on my own. The fantasy died the moment I walked through the employee entrance. Marco was waiting for me, his expression grim. "Don't bother clocking in, Lena. You're done here." My stomach dropped. What? Why? Orders from above. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "You're fired. Effective immediately. Here's your final pay." He handed me an envelope that felt suspiciously thin. I opened it to find exactly $43 for 2 weeks of work. This can't be right. I worked 60 hours. There were deductions. Broken glassware, uniform replacement, late arrivals. His litany of lies was delivered with the passion of a man reading a grocery list. It's all documented. It was theft, blatant, obvious theft. But I saw the fear in his eyes and understood. Someone had gotten to him. Someone had made it very clear that keeping me employed would be bad for his health. "Did he pay you?" I asked quietly. "Or just threaten you?" Marco's jaw tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about. Now get out before I call security." I left with my $43 and the clothes on my back. My landlord, I discovered when I returned to my building, had been similarly influenced. My room had been cleared out, my meager possessions in a garbage bag by the curb. The locks had been changed. "Rent's 3 months overdue," Mrs. Chen said, not even looking apologetic. "I got a better tenant lined up, one who pays on time." Another lie. I'd paid rent every month, in cash, always on time. But someone had made it worth her while to forget that. I stood on the sidewalk with my garbage bag of belongings and $43 to my name, watching my already fragile life crumble to dust. Trevino hadn't waited until midnight. He'd started dismantling my existence the moment I'd refused to immediately accept his proposal. This was his power. Not just money or muscle, but the ability to make people disappear from their own lives with nothing but a few phone calls. My phone buzzed, an unknown number, but I knew who it was before I answered. "Running out of options, Principessa?" Trevino's voice was smooth, almost sympathetic. "I hear you've had a difficult morning." "You bastard." The words escaped before I could stop them. "You couldn't even give me the full 24 hours. I gave you a choice. You seemed inclined to refuse it." I could hear the shrug in his voice. "I'm simply making sure you understand what refusal actually costs. Your job, your home, your safety net. By tomorrow morning, every landlord in a 50-mile radius will have your photo with instructions not to rent to you. Every employer will be similarly warned. Every shelter, every church, every possible refuge will be closed to you. That's not a choice." My voice broke despite my efforts to stay strong. "That's coercion. That's reality in my world, Caroline. And like it or not, you're in my world now. You have been since the moment your father tried to trade you to me like livestock." He paused. "The question is whether you want to be powerless in it or powerful. As your wife, I'd still be powerless, just with better accommodations. Would you?" His voice took on a different tone, sharper, more engaged. "Your father treated you like property. I'm offering you a position. There's a difference. As my wife, you'd have access to resources, protection, influence. You'd be untouchable. Until you decide I'm not useful anymore. I keep what's mine, Caroline. Ask anyone who's worked for me. I'm loyal to those who belong to me. The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, it sparked something else. Curiosity. The same can't be said for your father. How many times has he sold out his own people when it suited him? Too many. I'd witnessed it firsthand. Loyalty in my father's world was a commodity, bought and sold like everything else. Santoro's restaurant, 8 p.m. Trevino continued. The reservation is under my name. Come alone and we'll discuss terms. Don't come and I'll make one more phone call. Your father's been very eager to hear from me. The line went dead. I stood there on the street, garbage bag in hand, and felt the trap close completely around me. Trevino had systematically eliminated every alternative, every possible escape route. He'd backed me into a corner where the only way out was through him. The smart play would have been to call my father, beg forgiveness, accept whatever punishment he dealt, and whatever marriage he arranged. At least I knew what kind of monster my father was. But Trevino was right about one thing. My father had never hesitated to sacrifice his own people. I'd watched him order the execution of a cousin who'd stolen from him. I'd seen him sell out a decades-long ally to the FBI when it became convenient. Blood meant nothing to him. Loyalty meant nothing. Only power mattered. Would Trevino be any different? Probably not. But at least he was honest about it. I found a coffee shop with free Wi-Fi and spent my last few dollars on the cheapest thing on the menu. Then I did something I hadn't done in 3 months. I searched for information about Stelvino Travis Trevino. What I found was illuminating. Born in Naples, moved to New York at age 7 when his father died under mysterious circumstances. Raised by his uncle in the underground fighting circuit. Won his first professional fight at 15. By 18, he owned the circuit. By 25, he'd expanded into gambling, protection, and strategic investments. Now, at 32, he controlled a network that stretched across 5 states. But it was the details that caught my attention. The carefully documented instances of loyalty. The way he'd tracked down and personally dealt with someone who'd betrayed one of his fighters. The rumors about how he'd supported the family of a fallen associate for over a decade, paying for education and health care without any expectation of return. He was brutal, yes. Ruthless, absolutely. But he kept his word. And in my world, that was rarer than diamonds. I found an article from 2 years ago. A reporter had asked him about his philosophy on business relationships. His answer had been characteristically blunt. I don't believe in halfway measures. You're either all in or all out. If you're mine, I protect you with everything I have. If you betray me, I destroy you with equal commitment. The choice is always clear. All in or all out. Total commitment or complete destruction. I closed the laptop and stared at my reflection in the coffee shop window. Who was I kidding? I'd made my choice the moment Trevino had walked into that fight club. Maybe even before that, when I'd run from my father and tried to survive on my own. I couldn't go back, and I couldn't move forward alone. That left only one option. One man who'd offered me a place in his world, even if that place came with chains. I used the coffee shop bathroom to clean up as best I could, then spent 3 hours walking through thrift stores until I found something appropriate. A simple black dress that fit reasonably well, though it hung looser than it should have. Black heels that were scuffed but serviceable. I washed my face in a public restroom, finger-combed my hair, and tried to look like someone who belonged in a high-end restaurant. The woman staring back at me from the cracked mirror was a stranger. Hollow-eyed, too thin, desperate. But there was something else there too. A hardness that hadn't existed 3 months ago, a determination born from survival. I wasn't the princess who'd been offered to Trevino in that meeting. I was something else now. Something more useful, as he'd said. Santoro's was exactly the kind of place I expected. Elegant, expensive, and exclusive. The kind of restaurant where reservations were made months in advance, and the sommelier knew more about wine than most people knew about their own families. The hostess took one look at me, and her expression shifted from welcoming to dismissive. "Do you have a reservation?" "I'm meeting someone. The reservation is under Trevino." Her eyes widened fractionally. "Of course. Right this way, please." The transformation was instantaneous. Suddenly, I was being escorted like royalty through a dining room full of New York's elite. I saw politicians I recognized from news reports, business moguls whose net worth had more zeros than my phone number. And in the center of it all, commanding the best table with the kind of presence that made everyone else seem like extras in his movie, was Stelvino Travis Trevino. He stood as I approached, that ingrained old-world courtesy that seemed at odds with everything else about him. But his eyes, those cold gray eyes, assessed me with the same clinical precision as before. "Caroline." He pulled out my chair himself. "You came." "Did you doubt I would?" I sat, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Yes." His honesty was startling. "I thought there was a 30% chance you'd try to run to your father. 20% chance you'd disappear into another city. 50% chance you'd show up here. And if I'd chosen one of the other options." He settled back into his seat with liquid grace. "Then I would have dealt with the consequences. But I'm pleased you chose correctly." A waiter appeared with champagne before I could respond. Expensive stuff, probably older than me. Trevino waved him away after the glasses were filled. "To new partnerships," he said, raising his glass, "and beneficial arrangements." I didn't touch mine. "You said I'd be meeting your family." "You will, after we establish terms." He set down his glass untouched. "I don't introduce civilians to my people until I'm certain they understand what they're getting into." "Civilian," I tested the word. "Is that what I am?" "You were. Your father kept you deliberately isolated from the operational aspects of his business. He wanted a princess, not a partner." Trevino leaned forward slightly. "I don't need a princess, Caroline. I need someone intelligent, observant, capable of moving through both legitimate society and the shadows beneath it. Someone with your family connections, but without your father's particular brand of instability." "My father's instability?" "He's losing control." Trevino said it matter-of-factly, like commenting on the weather. "His paranoia is driving away allies. His brutality is attracting law enforcement attention. Within a year, maybe 2, his empire will collapse. The question is who picks up the pieces." Understanding dawned. "You want me as a bridge. When my father falls, you want his network to transfer to you through marriage." "Partially." He acknowledged the truth without shame. "But there are other benefits. Your family has connections in legitimate arms manufacturing, legal contracts with government agencies. That kind of legitimacy, combined with my operational networks, creates something unprecedented. Real power that can't be easily dismantled by law enforcement or rivals." It was brilliant, in a calculating sort of way, and it explained why he'd changed his mind about marrying me. "What are the terms?" I asked, deciding to skip the pretense that I had other options. "Marriage within the month. You'll live in my home, present yourself as my wife in all public and private settings. You'll have access to accounts, resources, security. You'll attend functions, meetings, and family gatherings as required. In exchange, you're protected from your father, housed, clothed, and given a position in my organization that actually uses your intelligence." That sounds like I'm an employee, not a wife. Most marriages in our world are employment contracts disguised as romance. His voice was dry. "I'm simply being honest about the transaction." And what do you get besides my family connections? Something shifted in his expression. A partner intelligent enough to be useful, beautiful enough to be an asset at social functions. And he paused, his eyes locked on mine. Someone who challenges me. I've discovered I enjoy that more than I expected. Heat crept up my neck at the intensity of his gaze. I thought you said I came with too many complications. You did. You do. He picked up his champagne glass, studying the bubbles. But I've realized that complications can be interesting. You're not docile, Caroline. You ran rather than accept an arranged marriage. You survived 3 months on your own with no resources and no support system. You've proven yourself more capable than the spoiled princess I initially dismissed. So I've earned the privilege of being your wife? The sarcasm escaped before I could stop it. His smile was dangerous. You've earned my interest. That's rarer. Before I could respond, a woman appeared at our table. She was striking, tall, elegant, with the kind of beauty that came from perfect genetics and expensive maintenance. Her designer dress probably cost more than I'd made in a year of waitressing. But it was the way Trevino's expression shifted when he saw her that made my stomach clench. This wasn't just any woman. This was someone who mattered to him. Stelvio, darling. Her voice was pure Manhattan society, cultured and cold. I heard you were dining here tonight. I thought I'd stop by and say hello. She didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge my existence at all. Trevino stood, his body language shifting into something more formal. Victoria, this is unexpected. Is it? She finally deigned to notice me, her gaze sweeping over my thrift store dress with barely concealed disdain. And who is this? Caroline Cole. Trevino's voice carried a warning. My fiancé. The word hit me like a physical blow. Fiancé. He'd announced it like it was already decided, like I'd already accepted, which I supposed I had by showing up here. Victoria's perfectly made-up face went through several expressions: surprise, calculation, and something that might have been anger. How fast you move, Stelvio. It was only last month that you were telling me. She stopped herself, smile sharpening. But I'm sure Caroline knows all about your previous entanglements. I knew nothing, absolutely nothing. And from the satisfied look on Victoria's face, she knew that. Trevino's hand found mine on the table, his grip firm, possessive. Victoria and I had a brief arrangement. It ended amicably several weeks ago. There's nothing more to discuss. An arrangement. Victoria's laugh was like breaking glass. Is that what we're calling it now? How delightful. Well, congratulations to you both. I'm sure you'll be very happy together in your arrangement. She swept away, leaving tension thick enough to choke on. I pulled my hand from his. Previous entanglements you forgot to mention? We weren't exclusive. His voice was maddeningly calm. And she has no bearing on our agreement. Except that she clearly thinks she should be sitting where I am. What Victoria thinks is irrelevant. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. She was a convenience, someone appropriate for social functions who understood the boundaries. You're offering something more valuable, a strategic alliance that benefits both of us. There's no comparison. How romantic. I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. I'm the valuable strategic alliance, and she was the convenient placeholder. Would you prefer I lie to you? His eyes glittered with challenge. Pretend this is a love match? Sweep you off your feet with declarations of devotion I don't feel? I'm offering you honesty, Caroline. Something your father never gave you. Something most people in our world never get. This is a business arrangement that benefits both of us. Accept it or don't, but don't expect me to dress it up as something it's not. He was right, and I hated him for it. At least he wasn't lying to me. At least he wasn't pretending this was anything other than what it was. A transaction between two people who needed something from each other. Fine, I said, lifting my chin. If we're being honest, then I have conditions. Interest sparked in his eyes. Name them. I won't be paraded around like a trophy. I want actual responsibilities in your organization, not just decorative duties. I want my own accounts, my own money, not just an allowance you can revoke whenever I displease you. And I hesitated, then pushed forward. I want a way out if this becomes unbearable. A divorce clause that protects me if I choose to leave. Trevino was quiet for a long moment, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. A real smile, not the dangerous one, but something that looked almost like approval. Done. With one addition to your terms. What addition? He reached into his jacket and pulled out the velvet box, setting it on the table between us. You wear my ring. Starting now. You present yourself as my fiancé in all settings. And you give this arrangement a real chance before exercising that divorce clause. His voice softened slightly. I'm not your father, Caroline. I won't cage you just to watch you break. But I need to know you're committed to trying. I looked at the ruby ring, pulsing like a beating heart. This was it. The point of no return. Once I put on that ring, I belonged to Stelvino Travis Trevino in the eyes of everyone who mattered. But wasn't that better than belonging to my father? At least Trevino was honest about what he wanted. At least he was offering me something in return. I held out my left hand, steady despite the fear coursing through me. All right, I said. Let's make a deal. His smile widened as he slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, of course. He'd probably had it sized while I was deciding whether to show up. The ruby caught the candlelight and blazed like fire, like a warning, like a promise. I was Stelvino Travis Trevino's fiancé now. For better or worse, my fate was sealed. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I wondered if I'd just made a deal with the devil, or found my only path to salvation. Time would tell. Time, and the man whose ring I now wore like a brand. The ring felt heavy on my finger as Trevino led me deeper into Santoro's, past the main dining room and through a door marked private. His hand was firm on the small of my back, not quite controlling, but making it clear that I was his to guide. I was still processing what I'd agreed to when we entered a room that made my breath catch. It was a private dining area, but calling it that felt inadequate. The space was all dark wood and dim lighting, with a table set for 8. And seated around that table were people whose faces I recognized from files my father had kept locked in his study. The real players in the underground world. The ones who decided who lived, who died, and who prospered. This was Trevino's family. Not blood relatives, but the chosen ones. The inner circle. Gentlemen, lady, Trevino announced, his hand still possessive on my back. I'd like you to meet my fiancée, Caroline Cole. The room went silent. Every eye turned to assess me, and I felt naked despite being fully clothed. These people could see through the thrift store dress and the carefully constructed composure. They could see the desperate runaway playing dress-up in a world above her station. Cole. A man at the head of the table spoke, his voice carrying the weight of decades in this life. He was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and eyes that had witnessed things that would break normal people. As in Dominic Cole's daughter. Yes. I lifted my chin, refusing to show weakness. Though I haven't been his daughter in any meaningful sense for 3 months. She ran. Another voice, this one female. I turned to see a woman who looked to be in her 40s, elegant and dangerous in equal measure. Smart girl. Dominic's been losing his grip for a while now. Losing his grip or revealing his true nature? The older man leaned forward slightly. There's a difference, Lucia. Trevino guided me to a chair and pulled it out himself. Caroline has agreed to a strategic alliance. Our marriage will unite the Cole weapons network with our operational structure. It's mutually beneficial. It's also going to make you a target. This from a younger man, maybe late 20s, with the kind of controlled violence that reminded me of a coiled spring. Dominic Cole doesn't take kindly to people stealing his property. I'm not property, I said sharply, before Trevino could respond. And I wasn't stolen. I left of my own accord. The young man's eyebrows rose. Got some fire in you. Good. You'll need it. Married to this one. He gestured at Trevino with something that might have been affection. He's not exactly known for his gentle nature. Neither am I, apparently. I met his gaze steadily. Not anymore. Lucia laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to ease some of the tension. I like her, Stelvio. She's got spine. She does. Trevino's voice carried a note of pride that surprised me. Which is why she's here. Caroline, let me make introductions. The distinguished gentleman questioning my judgment is Antonio Marchetti, my consigliere, and the closest thing I have to a father figure. Antonio inclined his head. Welcome to the family, Caroline. Conditional welcome anyway, until we see how this plays out. The lovely woman enjoying your discomfort is Lucia Rossi, who handles our financial operations and keeps me from making catastrophically stupid decisions with money. Someone has to, Lucia said dryly. Lord knows your instincts with investments are as aggressive as your fighting style. And the gentleman concerned about my becoming a target is Marco Santini, head of security. Trevino continued around the table, introducing each person. By the time he finished, my head was spinning with names and roles. These weren't just employees. They were a carefully constructed family, each person fitting into a precise role. Food began arriving, course after course of Italian cuisine that made my mouth water despite my nervousness. I'd barely eaten in days, and my stomach reminded me of that fact with an embarrassing growl. Eat, Lucia said kindly, passing me a plate of pasta. You're too thin. Stelvio, you'll need to feed your bride properly. Can't have her fainting during the ceremony. The casual mention of the ceremony made it all feel suddenly real. This wasn't just an agreement. This was actually happening. Within a month, I'd be Caroline Trevino. The ceremony will be small, Trevino said, as if reading my thoughts. Immediate family only. No need to make it a circus. Dominic will expect an invitation, Antonio pointed out. Refusing to invite the bride's father sends a particular message. Good. That's the message I want to send. Trevino's voice went cold. He doesn't get to witness this. He doesn't get to pretend he has any claim to her anymore. He'll retaliate. This from Marco, ever the security expert. You're essentially declaring war by marrying his daughter without his permission. He declared war when he put a bounty on her. Trevino's hand found mine under the table, his grip almost painful. When he treated her like livestock to be recovered. Caroline is under my protection now. Anyone who tries to change that will regret it. The possession in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, I felt something else. A strange warmth. For the first time in months, someone was defending me. Claiming me, yes, but also protecting me. There's something you should know. I spoke before I could second-guess myself. All eyes turned to me. My father's weapons network isn't just conventional arms anymore. He's been developing something new. Something he kept even from me until I stumbled onto the files. Trevino's fingers tightened on mine. What kind of something? I took a deep breath. This was it. The information that made me truly valuable or truly dangerous, depending on how they chose to use it. Biological weapons. Engineered toxins that can be delivered through conventional systems. He's been selling prototypes to interested parties, including some international groups that the U.S. government would very much like to stop. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the sound of cutlery on plates ceased. "That's why you ran," Antonio said slowly. "You discovered this. I discovered files, shipping manifests, communications with people my father said were business associates, but were actually terrorists." The words tumbled out faster now. I confronted him. He said I was being dramatic, that I didn't understand the business, but I understood enough to know that I couldn't be part of it. Couldn't let him marry me off to someone who'd gain access to those networks through our union. "And he let you leave?" Lucia's voice was sharp with disbelief. "He didn't let me. I ran, grabbed cash from his safe, destroyed my phones, and disappeared." I looked at Trevino. "That's why the bounty says intact. He needs me virginal and marriageable because the man he'd planned to trade me to wanted a pristine bride. Someone he could control. Someone who'd give him access to my father's entire operation." Trevino's jaw clenched so hard I could see the muscle jumping. "Who?" "Viktor Kozlov." The name landed like a bomb. I saw recognition flash across every face at the table. Viktor Kozlov was a name whispered in fear, even in the darkest corners of organized crime. A Russian oligarch with ties to the Kremlin, to international arms dealers, to some of the most dangerous people in the world. "Your father was going to marry you to Kozlov." Trevino's voice was deadly quiet. "The same Kozlov who's wanted by 3 international intelligence agencies. The same Kozlov who's been trying to expand into American markets for 5 years." "Yes. The arrangement was almost finalized when I found the files. The biological weapons were going to be part of my dowry. Proof of my father's value as an ally. Proof that marrying me would give Kozlov access to capabilities he'd never have otherwise." "Jesus Christ." Marco ran a hand through his hair. "No wonder Dominic's desperate to get you back. You're not just his daughter. You're the key to the biggest deal of his life. And now you're mine." Trevino's voice carried absolute certainty. "Which means Kozlov's deal just fell apart. Which means both he and your father are going to be very, very unhappy." I met his eyes. "I know. That's why I needed to tell you. If you marry me, you're not just taking on my father. You're taking on Kozlov and whoever else was banking on that alliance. I'm more than complicated, Stelvio. I'm dangerous." For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. Not the dangerous smile, but something genuine. Something that looked almost like respect. "I specialize in dangerous, Caroline. And this..." He gestured to encompass the situation. "This makes you infinitely more valuable than I initially calculated. You're not just a bridge to your father's network. You're leverage against one of the most powerful men in international crime." "You're insane," I said flatly. "This should make you run in the opposite direction." "Probably." He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles just above the ruby ring. The gesture was oddly courtly, at odds with everything else about him. "But I've never been accused of making safe choices." Antonio cleared his throat. "Stelvio, we need to discuss security protocols. If Kozlov was expecting to marry her and now finds out she's marrying you instead, then he'll try to either kill her or take her," Trevino finished calmly. "Which means Caroline doesn't leave protected locations without full security. Which means we accelerate the wedding timeline. And which means..." His eyes met mine. "You're moving into my home tonight. Not tomorrow, not next week. Tonight." "I don't have..." I stopped. I didn't have anything. My possessions fit in a garbage bag currently sitting in a coffee shop lost and found. "You don't need anything you had before." Lucia spoke gently. "We'll get you everything new, everything appropriate for your position as Stelvio's wife." Wife. The word kept hitting me like a hammer. I was going to be someone's wife. This dangerous man's wife. This man who was currently kissing my knuckles like I was something precious while simultaneously planning how to use me as leverage against international criminals. I need air. I stood abruptly, pulling my hand from his. Just for a moment, I'll come with you. Trevino was on his feet immediately. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. Please, just 5 minutes alone. I'm not running. I just need to breathe. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. The terrace is through that door. 5 minutes, Caroline. Then I'm coming to find you. I escaped onto the terrace, gasping for air like I'd been drowning. The night was cold, the city spread out below like a carpet of lights. This high up, you couldn't hear the street noise, couldn't see the dirt and darkness. Everything looked clean, beautiful, deceptive. You're making a mistake. I spun to find Victoria emerging from the shadows. She must have been waiting out here, watching, calculating. Excuse me? Stelvio. She moved closer, her designer dress perfect even in the cold. You think you know what you're getting into. You don't. He's not the kind of man who falls in love, Caroline. He's the kind who acquires things. And when he's tired of those things, he discards them. Thanks for the warning. I kept my voice level. But I'm not under any illusions about what this is. Aren't you? Her smile was sharp. I can see it in your eyes. You want to believe he chose you for something more than strategy. That maybe this could become real. But it won't. I spent 6 months trying to get him to feel something beyond physical attraction and mild interest. 6 months of being the perfect companion, the perfect partner for social functions, the perfect convenience, I interrupted. He told me. An arrangement. That's what he called it. Victoria's expression flickered. He told you about me? He told me you were irrelevant to our agreement. And honestly, I stepped closer, finding reserves of confidence I didn't know I had. I believe him. Because unlike you, Victoria, I'm not trying to make him love me. I'm trying to survive. And right now he's offering me survival in exchange for strategic value. That's more honest than most marriages in our world get. You're a fool. But there was less certainty in her voice now. You'll regret this. Maybe. I looked out at the city. But at least it'll be my choice to regret. Not my father's choice. Not Viktor Kozlov's choice. Mine. Victoria was silent for a moment. Then, surprisingly, she laughed. You know what? Maybe you'll last longer than I thought. You've got more backbone than that expensive dress suggests. She moved toward the door, then paused. One piece of advice, though. Stelvio keeps his word, but he's also completely ruthless when protecting what's his. If you become his wife, you'll be his to protect. That sounds romantic until you realize it means he'll make every decision about your safety without consulting you. He'll control every aspect of your life in the name of protection. Just be prepared for that. She left, and I stood alone with her words echoing in my head. He'll control every aspect of your life in the name of protection. Wasn't that what my father had done? Controlled me in the name of protection, in the name of what was best for the family. Was I trading one cage for another? The terrace door opened again, and Trevino stepped out. 5 minutes are up. I turned to face him, this man who'd become my only option. Victoria was here. I know. Marco told me she'd gone to the terrace. What did she say? That you'll control every aspect of my life in the name of protection. That you're ruthless and possessive. That I'm making a mistake. I paused. Is she wrong? Trevino moved closer, stopping just within arm's reach. No, she's not wrong. I am possessive. I am ruthless. And I will control aspects of your life, particularly regarding security. Your father wants you back. Kozlov wants you dead or captured. That makes you a target, Caroline. A valuable, high-priority target. And I protect what's mine with everything I have. Even if it means I have no freedom? Even then, his honesty was brutal. I won't apologize for keeping you alive. I should have been angry, should have told him the deal was off, that I'd take my chances alone. But looking into his eyes, I saw something that Victoria had missed, something that changed the calculation. He wasn't just protecting an asset. There was something else there. Not love. We didn't know each other well enough for that. But respect. Interest. A recognition of me as a person worth protecting beyond mere strategic value. Okay, I said quietly. I can live with that, as long as you understand something too. What? I won't be passive. I won't sit in a gilded cage and wait for you to make all the decisions. If I'm going to be your wife, your partner, then I need to actually be involved. Not just ornamental, actually useful. A slow smile spread across his face. Done. In fact, I'm counting on it. Your information about your father's biological weapons program just changed everything. We're going to need your knowledge, your insights, your understanding of how he operates. You're not ornamental, Caroline. You're operational. Operational. I tested the word. I've never been operational anything before. You survived 3 months on your own with no resources and no support system while evading one of the most powerful men on the East Coast. You're more operational than you think. He held out his hand. Ready to come inside? The family wants to toast our engagement. I looked at his extended hand. Strong, scarred, capable of terrible violence and unexpected tenderness. This was it, the final commitment. Once I took that hand and walked back inside, there was no more running, no more hiding. I'd be Caroline Trevino, for better or worse. I placed my hand in his. Ready. As we walked back inside together, his fingers laced through mine. I felt the weight of the decision settle over me like a cloak. Heavy, inescapable, but also strangely empowering. I wasn't my father's property anymore. I wasn't Kozlov's intended bride. I wasn't a helpless runaway. I was Stelvino Travis Trevino's fiancé. And that made me one of the most dangerous women in the city. Time to see if I could live up to that title. The penthouse Trevino called home was nothing like I'd expected. I'd imagined something ostentatious. The typical mobster aesthetic of gold fixtures, marble everything, and enough luxury to choke on. Instead, it was surprisingly understated. Modern. Clean lines, muted colors, floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of the city that made my breath catch. The master bedroom is through there. Trevino gestured to a hallway. There's also a guest suite if you'd prefer separate accommodations initially. Initially. The word hung between us, implying an eventually where separate rooms wouldn't be necessary. I pushed that thought aside. Separate. The word came out more forcefully than I intended. For now. He nodded, showing no disappointment. I'll have my housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, different Chen than your former landlord, prepare the guest suite. She'll also take you shopping tomorrow for appropriate clothing. I can shop for myself. Not anymore. His voice was firm, but not unkind. You're a target now, Caroline. You don't go anywhere without security. Mrs. Chen is former Israeli intelligence. She can shop and provide protection simultaneously. There it was. The control Victoria had warned me about, manifesting already. And if I want to go somewhere, do something, do I need permission? You need to coordinate with security. He moved to a bar cart and poured himself whiskey. It's not about permission. It's about keeping you alive. There's a difference. Is there? I challenged. He turned, glass in hand, and his expression was harder than I'd seen it. Yes. Permission implies you're a child asking an authority figure for approval. Coordination implies you're an adult, working with a team to achieve goals safely. I'm not your father, Caroline. I'm not interested in controlling you for the sake of control. But I am absolutely committed to keeping you alive. The distinction was subtle but important, and his annoyance at being compared to my father was evident. "I'm sorry," I said, surprising both of us. "That wasn't fair. You're not him." His expression softened fractionally. "No, I'm not. And I need you to understand that. Your father controlled you to diminish you, to keep you weak and dependent. I need you strong. I need you capable. But I also need you alive, which means accepting certain security measures." A woman appeared from what must have been the kitchen, middle-aged, competent-looking, with eyes that missed nothing. "Mr. Trevino, I've prepared the guest suite as requested." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. This is Caroline Cole, my fiancée. She'll be living here from now on." Mrs. Chen's assessment was quick and thorough. I saw her take in my thrift store dress, my too-thin frame, my exhaustion. "Welcome, Miss Cole. I've left toiletries and a robe in your room. Tomorrow we'll address your wardrobe." "Thank you." "Also," Mrs. Chen continued, "I've prepared a light meal. You look like you haven't eaten properly in quite some time. It's in the guest suite." I wanted to protest that I was fine, but my traitorous stomach growled loudly enough for everyone to hear. Trevino's lips twitched with something that might have been amusement. "Go eat. Rest. Tomorrow we'll begin planning the wedding and integrating you into operations. But tonight, you're safe. You can stop running." The words hit me harder than I expected. Stop running. I'd been in flight mode for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to be still. The guest suite was larger than my entire previous apartment. The bed alone could have fit 4 people comfortably. And on a tray by the window was food. Real food. Not the cheap ramen and dollar menu items I'd been surviving on. Grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, fresh bread, and what looked like homemade soup. I ate mechanically at first, then with increasing desperation, as my body reminded me how starved it had been. When I'd finished everything on the tray, I found myself crying, actual tears streaming down my face over a plate of vegetables. I was so tired. Tired of running, tired of fear, tired of the constant vigilance that came with trying to survive alone. A soft knock on the door made me swipe at my eyes hastily. "Come in." Trevino entered, and I saw his expression shift when he noticed my tears. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Everything. I don't know." I laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. "I'm crying over chicken and vegetables. That's how far I've fallen." He crossed the room and did something unexpected. He sat beside me on the bed and pulled me against his chest, one hand stroking my hair with surprising gentleness. "You haven't fallen, Caroline. You've survived. There's a difference." His voice rumbled through his chest. "And now you don't have to just survive anymore. You can actually live." I should have pulled away. Should have maintained distance and professionalism in this arranged marriage. But I was so tired, and he was so solid. And for just a moment I let myself be weak. "I'm scared," I whispered against his shirt. "Of you. Of this. Of what I've agreed to." "Good." His hand continued its soothing motion. "Fear keeps you alert. Just don't let it paralyze you." "That's the second time you've said that." "Because it's important. Fear is useful. Paralysis is death." He tilted my chin up, forcing me to meet his eyes. "You're going to be my wife, Caroline. That means you'll have enemies, people who want to use you against me, people who see you as a weakness. But it also means you'll have resources, protection, and power of your own. The question is whether you'll learn to use those things, or let them be used for you." "I don't know how to use power." "Then I'll teach you." His thumb traced my lower lip, a gesture that sent heat through me despite everything. "Starting tomorrow. But tonight, you rest. You're safe here. I give you my word." "And your word means something?" "Everything." The absolute certainty in his voice left no room for doubt. I keep my promises, Caroline. Always. Remember that. He stood, moving toward the door, but I found myself speaking before he could leave. Stelvio? He paused, looking back. Thank you, for this. For not making me beg or grovel or play games. For just being direct about what this is. Something softened in his expression. We're going to work well together, you and I. I'm certain of it. After he left, I showered in the bathroom that was larger than my previous bedroom, dried off with towels softer than anything I'd owned, and slept in a bed that felt like clouds. For the first time in 3 months, I slept without nightmares. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to curtain and the smell of coffee. Real coffee, not the instant garbage I'd been making in coffee shop bathrooms. Mrs. Chen knocked and entered with a tray. Good morning, Miss Cole. Mr. Trevino asked me to let you sleep, but it's nearly 11 and we have appointments this afternoon. 11? I never slept past 6. My body must have needed the rest more desperately than I'd realized. Appointments? Shopping first, then hair and makeup consultations. The wedding is in 3 weeks, and there's much to prepare. She set the tray down, revealing more food than I could possibly eat. Mr. Trevino has also arranged for you to meet with Antonio this afternoon. Something about operational briefings. Operational briefings. Right. I wasn't just a bride. I was an asset. I dressed in clothes Mrs. Chen had somehow procured overnight. Simple but expensive, fitting perfectly despite her never asking my size. The shopping trip was surreal. Boutiques closed to other customers. Designers bringing entire collections for my review. Mrs. Chen's subtle but constant vigilance, her eyes always scanning for threats. And the spending. Dear God, the spending. Dresses that cost more than I used to make in 3 months. Shoes that could fund a year's rent. Jewelry that made my engagement ring look understated by comparison. Mr. Trevino wants you appropriately attired for your position, Mrs. Chen explained when I protested the price of a particular dress. You're going to be attending functions with some of the most powerful people in the city. Your appearance reflects on him. So I'm a reflection, a mirror to make him look good. You're a partner who needs to be taken seriously. Her correction was gentle but firm. Showing up to a political fundraiser in a thrift store dress sends a message that you're not important enough to invest in. Showing up in couture sends a different message entirely. Power is as much about perception as reality in this world, Miss Cole. I was beginning to understand that. Everything in Trevino's world was calculated. The clothes, the jewelry, the car he sent for us, a bulletproof sedan that cost more than most houses. Even my engagement ring, with its blood-red ruby, was a message. She belongs to me. She's valuable. Touch her, and pay the price. The meeting with Antonio was different. He met us at a nondescript office building, in a room that looked like a normal conference space, but probably had security measures I couldn't begin to guess at. Caroline. He greeted me warmly, gesturing to a seat. How are you adjusting? I'm not sure adjusting is the right word. Surviving the transition, maybe. He smiled. Honest. Good. Stelvio told me about your father's biological weapons program. I need you to tell me everything you know. Every detail, no matter how small it seems. For the next 2 hours, I recounted everything I'd discovered. The files I'd found, the shipping manifests, the communications with overseas buyers, the technical specifications I'd only partially understood, but had photographed before running. You photographed them? Antonio's eyes gleamed. You still have those photos? On a burner phone I hid before I ran. I can get it if... We'll get it. He made notes with quick efficiency. This information is invaluable, Caroline. With this, we can not only undermine your father's operation, but potentially bring down several international networks. And put a target on my back bigger than it already is. Yes, He didn't sugarcoat it. But you already have that target. Might as well make it count for something. The pragmatism was refreshing in its honesty. Over the next 2 weeks, I learned the reality of my new life. Mornings with Antonio, learning the structure of Trevino's organization and where I'd fit into it. Afternoons with various specialists, security training, weapons familiarization, situational awareness. Evenings with Trevino himself, discussing strategy, plans, and the future we were building. It was intense, exhausting, and strangely exhilarating. I wasn't ornamental, I was operational, and I was good at it. You have a mind for strategy, Trevino observed one evening as we reviewed intelligence reports together. You see patterns others miss. My father trained me to be observant, to notice details. He just never intended me to use those skills for anything beyond being a perfect hostess. His loss, my gain. He looked up from the reports, his gray eyes intense. You're becoming exactly what I hoped you'd be, Caroline. And what's that? Dangerous. The word was spoken with something like pride. You're dangerous in the best possible way. Smart, observant, strategic. I'm going to enjoy being married to you. The word married sent a flutter through my stomach. The wedding was in 1 week. 1 week until I legally became Caroline Trevino. Are you nervous? He asked, clearly reading my expression. Terrified, I admitted. This is happening so fast. Would you prefer we wait? I considered it, then shook my head. No, waiting just gives me more time to second guess, and gives my father and Kozlov more time to make moves against us. Better to make this official and present a united front. Us. He smiled. I like that you said us. We're partners, aren't we? That's what you keep telling me. Yes, we are. He stood, moving around the desk to where I sat. But partners in business can become something more, given time. My breath caught as he traced my jawline with one finger. Stelvio. I'm not pushing, Caroline. Just acknowledging potential. You're remarkable, beautiful, intelligent, brave. Under different circumstances, I'd court you properly. But these aren't different circumstances. So instead, I'm offering you honesty. I'm attracted to you. Not just strategically, but personally. And I think you feel the same. I did. God help me, I did. This dangerous man with his calculated ruthlessness and unexpected tenderness had gotten under my skin. This is complicated enough without adding, everything worth having is complicated. He leaned closer. May I kiss you? The fact that he asked, that he gave me the choice, made the decision easy. Yes, his lips met mine with surprising gentleness. Not demanding, but exploring, asking permission with every touch. I melted into it, my hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Complicated, I managed. Very. His smile was genuine, warm, but worth it. That night, I moved from the guest suite to the master bedroom. Not because he demanded it, but because I wanted to. Because somewhere along the way, this arranged marriage had become something more. Something real. Something that felt dangerously close to love. The wedding took place in a small chapel Antonio's family had owned for generations. True to his word, Trevino kept it intimate. Just his inner circle and the necessary witnesses. No press, no spectacle. Just a simple ceremony that bound us legally and permanently. I wore a dress that cost more than a car. Ivory silk with delicate lace, custom made to fit perfectly. Mrs. Chen had arranged everything, from the flowers to the small reception afterward. But it was the moment Trevino slipped the platinum band onto my finger, next to the ruby engagement ring, that made it real. His vows were simple, direct. I promise to protect you with everything I have, to value you as a partner, to keep you safe from all threats, including myself. You're mine now, Caroline, and I take care of what's mine. Mine. The possessive word should have bothered me. Instead, it sent warmth through my chest. My own vows were equally honest. I promise to stand with you, to use everything I have to build what we're creating together, to trust you when trust doesn't come easily. You chose me when I had nothing. Now I choose you with everything I am. The kiss that sealed it was different from the one we'd shared in his office. Deeper, more certain, a promise and a claiming all at once. Mrs. Trevino, he murmured against my lips. Finally, Mrs. Trevino. I was Caroline Trevino now. The name felt strange and right simultaneously. The small reception was surprisingly warm. Toasts from Antonio, teasing from Marco about how I'd domesticated the beast. Even Lucia pulled me aside with genuine advice about navigating this world as Trevino's wife. He's possessive, she warned, protective to a fault. But he's also loyal in ways most men in this life aren't. You'll do well together, I think, as long as you don't let him steamroll you. I don't intend to. She laughed. Good. He needs someone who pushes back, keeps him honest. That night, in the master bedroom that was now legitimately ours, Trevino was surprisingly tentative. We don't have to, he started. I silenced him with a kiss. I want to. I'm choosing this. Choosing you. What followed was tender and intense simultaneously. He worshipped my body like I was precious, making me feel cherished in ways I'd never experienced. And afterward, holding me close, he whispered words in Italian I didn't understand, but felt in my bones. What does that mean? I asked sleepily. It means you're mine, completely, and I'm yours in equal measure. I fell asleep in his arms, feeling safe for the first time in longer than I could remember. The peace lasted exactly 3 days. I was reviewing shipping manifests in Trevino's home office. Our office now, he'd insisted, when Antonio burst in without knocking. His face was grim. We have a problem, a big one. Trevino looked up from his own work. How big? Kozlov big. He knows about the marriage, and he's not happy. Antonio dropped a folder on the desk. He's made a formal complaint to the council. The council. Even I knew what that meant. The ruling body that mediated disputes between major criminal organizations. Going to them was essentially declaring that Trevino had violated some unwritten rule by marrying me. On what grounds? Trevino's voice was ice. Breach of contract. Apparently, your predecessor had made a tentative agreement with Dominic Cole about Caroline's marriage prospects. By marrying her yourself, Kozlov claims you violated that agreement and cost him a significant business opportunity. That agreement was made before I took over operations. Trevino's jaw clenched. And it was never formalized. It's meaningless. Try telling that to Kozlov. He's demanding compensation. Either you dissolve the marriage and turn Caroline over to him, or you pay him the equivalent value of what he lost. Neither is happening. Trevino's voice could have cut glass. Then he's demanding a council arbitration, and if the council rules in his favor, they won't. If they do, Antonio continued firmly, you'll be in violation of council authority. That means sanctions. Possibly worse. I felt the blood drain from my face. This was my fault. My existence, my marriage to Trevino, had created a massive political problem. There has to be something we can do, I said. Some way to... No. Trevino's hand found mine, his grip almost painful. You're not a bargaining chip, Caroline. You're my wife. That's not negotiable. But if the council... Then I'll deal with the council. He stood, still holding my hand. "Antonio, schedule the arbitration. I'll make my case. And if they don't like my answer, they can go to hell." The arbitration was scheduled for the following week. In the meantime, security around me tripled. I couldn't go anywhere without a full detail. Mrs. Chen became my constant shadow, and Trevino became increasingly tense. "Talk to me," I said one night, finding him on the penthouse balcony staring at the city. "Tell me what you're thinking." "I'm thinking that I underestimated how badly Kozlov wanted you." His voice was rough. I knew he'd be angry. I didn't realize he'd go this far. "Why does he want me specifically? There are plenty of other women who could give him access to weapons networks." "Because you're Dominic Cole's daughter, his legitimate heir. Marrying you doesn't just give Kozlov access to the weapons network. It gives him legitimacy in certain circles, makes him family, opens doors that money alone can't open." He turned to me. "You're more valuable than you realize, Caroline. So what happens at the arbitration?" "I make my case. Explain that the previous agreement wasn't binding, that you're my wife legally and that should end the discussion. And if it doesn't, then things get complicated." He pulled me close. "But whatever happens, you're staying with me. I don't care what the council says. You're mine." The possessiveness should have frightened me. Instead, it made me feel protected, valued, chosen. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Good. So am I." The confession surprised me. Fear means we're taking this seriously. But I won't let him have you, Caroline. I'll burn the entire city down first. The arbitration took place in a neutral location, a historic building that had hosted similar meetings for decades. The council consisted of 5 senior members from different organizations, all men who'd been in this life longer than I'd been alive. Trevino presented his case with characteristic precision. The previous agreement had been informal, non-binding, made by someone no longer in a position of authority. My marriage to him was legal and recognized by all relevant authorities. Kozlov's representative, Kozlov himself didn't attend, argued that tradition and honor demanded compensation, that Trevino had knowingly interfered in negotiations that had been ongoing for months. The council deliberated for 3 hours, while Trevino and I waited in an anteroom. He held my hand the entire time, his grip steady despite the tension radiating from him. When we were called back, the head of the council spoke. "We've reached a decision. While we acknowledge that the previous agreement was informal, we also recognize that Mr. Kozlov had a reasonable expectation of good faith negotiations. However, we also recognize that Miss Cole, Mrs. Trevino, is a person with agency who has the right to choose her own spouse." My heart hammered. This could go either way. Therefore, we rule that the marriage stands. However, Mr. Trevino owes Mr. Kozlov compensation for the business opportunity lost. The amount will be determined through separate negotiations. Trevino's jaw clenched, but he nodded. "Understood." "Furthermore," the council head continued, "we strongly advise Mr. Trevino to ensure Mrs. Trevino's safety. Mr. Kozlov has expressed significant disappointment with this outcome. We cannot guarantee his response will be measured." It was as close to a warning as we'd get. Kozlov would come for me. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but eventually. "She'll be protected," Trevino said flatly. "I guarantee it." We left the building under heavy security. Trevino's hand never left mine. "I'm sorry," I said in the car. "This is all because of me. This is because Kozlov is a greedy bastard who doesn't like losing." He pulled me against him. "Don't apologize for existing, Caroline. You're worth every complication." But the complications were only beginning. 2 days after the arbitration, I discovered I was pregnant. The positive test sat on the bathroom counter like an accusation. We'd been married less than a month, together intimately for only slightly longer. But there it was, undeniable. I was carrying Stelvino Trevino's child. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was an heir, the next generation of the Trevino Empire. A child who would be born into this world of danger and power. A child who would make me even more valuable and even more vulnerable. I was still staring at the test when Trevino found me. "Caroline? Mrs. Chen said you were..." He stopped, seeing the test in my hand. "Is that?" "Positive." My voice sounded distant. "I'm pregnant." For a long moment, he just stared. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. A genuine, almost boyish smile that transformed his face. "Pregnant." He said the word like he was tasting it. "We're having a baby." "You're not angry?" I'd expected calculation, strategic thinking about implications and complications. "Angry?" He crossed to me, his hands gentle as they framed my face. "Caroline, you're carrying my child. Our child. Why would I be angry?" "Because it complicates everything. Because now Kozlov won't just want me for strategic value. He'll want to eliminate the baby. Eliminate your heir." His expression darkened. "Then he'll die trying. No one touches you, Caroline. And no one touches our child. I'll make sure of it." The absolute certainty in his voice should have comforted me. Instead, it terrified me. Because I knew what Trevino was capable of when protecting what was his. And now I wasn't just his wife. I was the mother of his child. Which meant the target on my back had just gotten exponentially larger. Pregnancy changed everything. Trevino became simultaneously more protective and more possessive. Security doubled again. My movements were restricted to the penthouse and a few approved locations, all under heavy guard. At first, I chafed against the constraints. But as my stomach began to show, as the reality of carrying his child became visible, I understood. This wasn't just about me anymore. "How are you feeling?" Trevino asked one morning, finding me on the balcony watching the sunrise. His hand settled over my small bump, a gesture that had become habit. "Trapped," I admitted, "protected, cherished, terrified, all of the above." "I know the restrictions are difficult. They're necessary, I know." I covered his hand with mine. I just wish I could see the end game. When does this level of security relax? When do we stop waiting for Kozlov to make his move? When he's no longer a threat. And how do we make that happen? His expression was unreadable. "We're working on it." I'd learned to recognize that tone. It meant Trevino was planning something he didn't want to discuss. Something dangerous. "Don't shut me out," I said. "We're partners, remember? I deserve to know what you're planning." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. "Kozlov is making moves, trying to destabilize my operations, poaching people, interfering with shipments, generally making himself a problem. Antonio thinks he's testing our defenses, looking for weaknesses. Weaknesses like me. You're not a weakness." His voice was firm. "You're my strength. But yes, he'll try to use you against me if he can." "So what's the plan?" "The plan is to eliminate him before he can make a serious move against you." He said it so calmly, like discussing eliminating a business competitor rather than murdering a man. "We've been building a case against him with certain federal authorities, people who'd love to take down someone like Kozlov. Give them enough evidence, and they'll do the work for us." "Using my father's files," I guessed. "Among other sources. Your information about the biological weapons program is gold, Caroline. With that, we can not only bring down Kozlov, but dismantle a significant portion of your father's operation. My father will know I'm the source. Let him know." Trevino's voice went cold. "He lost any claim to you when he tried to sell you like property. He wants to come after us for it? Let him try." The casual confidence should have reassured me. Instead, a knot of anxiety formed in my stomach. "I have a bad feeling about this," I admitted. "Trust me, He pulled me close, careful of my growing stomach. I've handled worse than Kozlov and your father. They're dangerous, yes, but they're also predictable, and predictable enemies are manageable enemies. I wanted to believe him, but the knot in my stomach only tightened. The attack came 3 days later. I was at a doctor's appointment, one of the few approved outings, with Mrs. Chen and a full security detail. The appointment went smoothly. Everything with the baby was progressing perfectly. We were heading back to the car when it happened. The explosion ripped through the parking garage, throwing me to the ground. My ears rang. Smoke filled my lungs. Strong hands pulled me up. Mrs. Chen, her face grim with determination. "Move! Now!" She half-carried me toward an exit, our security detail forming a protective wall around us. Gunfire erupted. I saw Marco go down, clutching his shoulder. Saw Mrs. Chen return fire with deadly precision. The world narrowed to survival. Run, take cover, keep moving. We made it to a backup vehicle. Mrs. Chen shoved me inside and threw herself in after me, shouting orders to the driver. We peeled out of the garage as more gunfire echoed behind us. "Are you hurt?" Mrs. Chen's hands moved over me, checking for injuries. "The baby?" "I'm fine, I think. I don't know." My hands went to my stomach, feeling for movement. "Please be okay, please." My phone rang. Trevino. "Caroline." His voice was rough with fear. "Are you safe?" "We're in the backup car. Mrs. Chen got us out. There was an explosion. Gunfire. Marco's injured." "Marco's being extracted now. Are you hurt?" "No, but the baby..." "We're going straight to the hospital. I'll meet you there." He paused. "This was Kozlov. It has to be." "How do you know?" "Because I just got word that he's disappeared, left the country this morning." This was his parting shot before running. Relief and fury warred in my chest. "He tried to kill me. To kill our baby." "I know." Trevino's voice was absolutely deadly, and he's going to pay for it. I promise you that, Caroline. He will pay. The hospital confirmed what I'd prayed for. The baby was fine, shaken but unharmed. I was kept overnight for observation while Trevino paced my room like a caged animal. "This is my fault," he said finally. "I should have moved against him sooner. Should have anticipated." "Stop." I grabbed his hand, pulling him to sit beside me on the bed. "This isn't your fault. Kozlov made his choice. Now we make ours." "What choice is that?" "We make him regret ever knowing my name." I met his eyes steadily. "You said you were building a federal case. Let's finish it. Let's give them everything they need to destroy him, and my father while we're at it." Pride flickered across his face. "You're certain? Once we do this, there's no going back. Your father will be arrested, possibly executed, given the severity of the charges." "Good." The word came out fierce. "He stopped being my father the day he tried to sell me to Kozlov. Now he's just a threat. Threats get eliminated." Trevino smiled, dark and satisfied. "Have I mentioned how much I love you?" The words hung in the air between us. We'd never said it before. Acknowledged attraction, respect, partnership, but not love. "You love me?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Desperately, completely. Probably since the moment you stood up to me in that restaurant." He cupped my face gently. "I know this started as strategy, but somewhere along the way, it became real. You became everything to me, Caroline. You and our child." Tears pricked my eyes. "I love you too. I fought it for so long, told myself it was just gratitude or circumstance. But it's not. It's real." He kissed me then, tender and fierce simultaneously, a promise and a claiming. "We're going to end this," he said against my lips. "Kozlov, your father, all of it. And then we're going to raise our child in safety. I swear it." Over the next month, we systematically dismantled both Kozlov's and my father's operations. The federal case came together beautifully. Biological weapons trafficking, illegal arms sales, connections to terrorist organizations. The evidence was overwhelming. My father was arrested first. I watched the news coverage with something like satisfaction as he was led away in handcuffs, his empire crumbling around him. Kozlov took longer. He'd fled to Russia, thinking he was safe. But Trevino had connections there too. 3 weeks after the attack, Kozlov died in what was officially ruled an accident, a fall from his penthouse balcony. We both knew the truth. Trevino had kept his promise. Kozlov had paid for threatening us. I should have been horrified. Should have been troubled by my husband's capacity for violence. Instead, I felt safe, protected, valued. My pregnancy progressed smoothly after the attack. We found out we were having a boy, a son who would inherit everything Trevino had built. The thought should have worried me. What kind of life would our child have born into this world? But watching Trevino carefully assemble a crib he'd bought himself, his hands gentle despite their capacity for violence, I felt hope. This man would protect our son with everything he had, would give him choices Trevino himself had never had. What are you thinking about? Trevino caught me watching him from the doorway of the nursery. How far we've come, from that first meeting in the fight club to this. I gestured at the nursery. Pale blue walls, carefully chosen furniture, a room full of love. Regrets? His voice was carefully neutral. None. I moved to him, his arms immediately coming around me and our son. You gave me protection when I needed it. Purpose when I felt useless. Love when I thought I'd never have it. How could I regret any of that? I gave you chains disguised as safety. No. I pulled back to look at him. My father gave me chains. You gave me options, partnership, a real choice about what I wanted my life to be. That's not the same thing at all. He kissed me softly. I don't deserve you. Probably not. I smiled. But you're stuck with me anyway. Our son was born on a cold January morning. Labor was long and difficult, but when they finally placed him in my arms, tiny, perfect, with his father's dark hair and my eyes, I felt something click into place. This was my family, my chosen family, not forced by circumstances or strategy, but built through choice and love and commitment. He's perfect, Trevino whispered, his finger gently stroking our son's cheek. Absolutely perfect. What should we name him? We discussed options but never decided. Trevino was quiet for a moment, then spoke. Antonio, after the man who taught me what family really means. I smiled. Antonio Trevino, I like it. Antonio Dominic Trevino, he corrected, after both our father's traditions, but he'll be better than both of them. We'll make sure of it. We will, I agreed. Together. The christening was a small affair, just family. Antonio Marchetti held his namesake with obvious pride. Lucia cried. Marco, healed from his injury, stood guard with protective vigilance. This was my world now. Not the world of ballrooms and fake smiles my father had raised me in, but a world of chosen loyalty, of people who'd die to protect each other, of real family bonds forged through trial and commitment. Happy? Trevino murmured, pulling me close as we watched our son being passed around the family. Yes, I leaned into his strength. Surprisingly, impossibly happy. Even with all the complications, the danger, the life we lead, especially because of those things, I turned to face him. They made us choose each other. Not because we had to, but because we wanted to. That's worth everything. He kissed me as our family laughed around us, as our son gurgled contentedly, as the future we'd built together spread before us. I'd run into a fight club 3 months pregnant and terrified, looking for escape. I'd found something better. I'd found a partner, a protector, a love that was real because we'd chosen it. Stelvino Travis Trevino was a monster to most of the world, but to me, he was everything. My husband, my love, the father of my child, and I was his, completely, willingly, forever. "I love you," I whispered. "I love you too, Mrs. Trevino." His smile was genuine, warm. "Thank you for running into my life. Thank you for catching me." And in that moment, surrounded by family, holding our son, building our future together, I knew I'd made the right choice. The best choice. The only choice that mattered. I chose him. He chose me. And we chose each other every day after. That was real power, real strength, real love. And it was ours.